How's it going, everyone? It's Ken and Brad from Pixelated Thoughts, and this entire video is going to be about the Switch 2. We know that it releases on June 5th, and I think we want to cover a couple of things. We'll do the good and the bad from their actual announcement, and then we'll talk about the pricing. So, Brad, did we call it? Did we get what we wanted on our wish list, which was a 1080p screen and handheld mode and a 4K dock? What else did we want?
So I wanted a larger screen, better battery. I mean, that's really, and it's a little bit bigger, and the battery's bigger, but apparently
Sounds good. Yeah, I've heard.
less.
Yeah,
Less battery time. So I mean, once again, I would much rather make it more portable than have the more battery. That's just a personal preference. Like typically, I'm not going to be playing it more than 2 hours in any given time unless I'm on a long trip, which I will have other battery sources to charge regardless, right? I'm not gonna go on a 10-hour trip and not bring something to charge it with. So I feel like it's a kind of a moot point. The dock, really like to see. I really like the redesign of the Joy Cons. Still looks atrociously unergonomic or non-ergonomic.
Non-ergonomic.
Still just looks the exact same. So I'll probably use third-party Joy Cons if I'm assuming they'll allow it like they did with the original Switch.
We're assuming that stick drift is still going to be a problem, right? Right. I mean,
so there is. So they've not really. They definitely said it was not Hall effect analog sticks.
oh really?
But there is another technology that they could use, which is some other type of magnetic whatever. Some other. I actually have a controller that uses that third technology, and I really like them. So once again, I'm not. There's probably going to be stick drift just because. So, in my experience with technology, working in the IT/cybersecurity field for a long time, anything portable is going to break.
Yeah.
Anything that is travel, like a desktop, a desktop is likely to just die off of old age. It's not gonna something's not gonna physically break off of it. But a laptop, 9 times out of 10, it's going to get stepped on. It's going to get rained on. It's going to get something spilt. Something's going to happen to it before it just dies of old age. And I think handhelds are kind of the same in that same boat. I'm pretty sure they're going to have I do like the magnetic attachment.
Yeah, they did sell me on it. I do like it. Yeah.
Because I do have two Joy-Cons. I bought two sets of Joy-Cons, and one side on both slide off my Switch.
I think we're having that issue too, where I was trying to play Mario Party with my wife and daughter, and we were trying to play it, and like one of the Joy-Cons just wouldn't slide off, and I was like, "What is this bullshit?" I was like, "What happened there, man?"
I've got that. I've got the Ring Fitness game. The Ring. Well, the one that slides off is the one that you put in that controller. So if you do a sudden motion with that thing, it will send it off the ring into a random direction.
It's your cat or something.
But yeah, so I think it's an overall great improvement. I do like that the stand on the original Switch was atrocious, right?
I feel like it was like a little nub, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's just like a little tab.
They're like no one's gonna use this. I remember the only time I actually used that was I went to we were on a trip and I wanted to play Hades, and so like I used to say, I was like, this thing sucks. So I'm like, I'm just gonna hold the Switch up. I think it's awesome, dude. I really do. I like almost everything about the, it's not it's not so dramatic of an update where I think a lot of people would have beef with it. I do think there are people who do want a bigger screen. I think I've heard some complaints about, but I'm like, look, you're getting 1080p up to 120 frames per second, 4K dock. That's all I wanted. Now I've heard the battery life is not great, but I assume like handheld like that is going to have its issues. I do think though, like I think my major problem is it's probably the upgrade packs, and we should just probably dive into pricing, right? I mean, we saw Mario Kart World, and then we saw the Donkey Kong Bonanza. We're like, oh god, these games look really good. Metroid Prime 4. I told you, like, when I saw the trailer, I was like, that's a Switch 2 game. Like, there's no way that's going on Switch. There's too many jagged edges. Um, $80 digital, $90 physical.
Nice.
I think it was really funny because the reaction by everyone was like, okay, 450 for the Switch. Now that price is subject to change based off like global economic tariffs and stuff like that. But 450
Terrorists.
tariffs,
Oh,
450 for
tariffs. Oh.
450 for the Switch, right? US, and then 500 for the Mario Kart World pack. I looked at it and went, that's actually right in the wheelhouse that we predicted. We said 400, I think around 400, 450. You and I would have, honestly, I think we were also like, it could be 600 depending on like the advancements that the Switch 2 makes, because when they initially dropped that trailer, we couldn't really tell what was like going on. We're just like, cool, thank you for finally announcing it.
So I feel like a lot of people complained about the price of the console. Like, I get the price of the game.
Oh,
right?
really?
Like that I get. People are complaining that it's more expensive than the original Switch, and I'm just like, I think 450s. I'm not gonna say a steal, but that's pretty much cheaper than any other handheld computer that you can buy.
Cheaper than the Steam Deck.
I'm pretty sure that they're still selling it at a loss, because almost every console company sells their hardware at a loss. And especially with Nintendo, they have so many first party titles that they definitely recoup whatever they lose in their hardware with
Correct.
the 10 years of software that comes with it.
I didn't.
Because they're not going to release another one.
I didn't think people were complaining that much
Uh,
about the price.
n-
I saw the reaction to the games, and like it was kind of like we've had this discussion before on the podcast where it was like, are games getting too expensive? Was the $70 jump too much? And then if you look at AAA titles, and we're just looking at AAA only, and you look at the production costs, and you're looking at like 150 to 300 million, right? So realistically, you need to sell like at $60 at least 2 million copies to recoup something at 150. But then you also have to like talk about certification, project costs, all that stuff, right? So there's a lot of things you have to like consider when you look at the price point. $80 to $90 is where I thought the initial jump would be. Instead of a $10 jump, be a $20 jump, and then potentially you would see like some smaller titles jumping around like the $40 to $50 range, right? AA titles, potentially staying the same. Nintendo's been doing this since like the 90s. For those who do not remember, when the Super NES launched, they had games that were $90 to $100. I think Chrono Trigger was like $90 when it first came out. Killer Instinct, I think, was $90. So Nintendo's pricing has always been kind of strange, but my assumption is that they looked at it and said, look, we want to test tolerance. Obviously, $100 for a game would probably piss off a ton of people, but just a shade under it, I think most people would bite. And I saw a lot of reactions to Mario Kart World being 80 to 90. And people were like, yeah, I'm assuming I'm going to get like $80 to $90 out of it because I'm not going to get as many microtransactions. Now, that may not be true, though, because they may treat it like Mario Kart 8 and have like a pass for all the new levels that come out. So you're paying for that pass as well. But with something like Donkey Kong, Metroid Prime, I mean, that's when you can kind of get iffy. I don't think it really matters in regard to like Metroid Prime 4 with all the changes that they're going to add, because you have mouse capability with the Switch 2, which is also pretty cool, but I don't know how many people are actually going to jump on top of that.
I can't tell you how many, like, I could probably count on one hand how many times I have sat at a table to play my Switch.
Yeah, 100%. I don't disagree with that, but I think that looking at the price point, I think it's just Nintendo saying, look, we're pretty much in our own captive market, right? Everything else right now that's out there, whether it's the Steam Deck, whether it's the Legion, those are computers. Those are handheld PCs. We're a handheld console. And I think that they've seen kind of the way the market has trended for them. I think almost every one of their AAA first party titles, they're pushing like 10 to 20 million copies per. And I think they're looking to recoup a lot of the development costs. Now, do I think that that's, kind of greedy? I had a whole argument with Josh, our buddy, where I was like, I can see where your argument is, but I can also see Nintendo's pricing analyst sitting there and saying, we could probably charge $80 to $100 and get away with it, because I think that's generally what's going to happen. I think you are going to see more people buy the Switch 2 bundle than people will buy the actual Switch 2, because you are getting Mario Kart World for what, $50 essentially, quote
Yeah.
unquote.
So another thing, I mean, once again, this is total speculation, right? As far as I know, in the gaming industry, with all the layoffs and kind of studio shutdowns and whatnot, I'm assuming Nintendo has not incurred any of that. I don't think anything's hit them. Now I know they've always been financially stable since the 20s or something of last century. I don't know. They've always had money. So once again, they might just be rolling in the money, and they're just trying to gain more, or they're trying to, further future proof themselves for future projects, right? It's like, hey, this is a new project. We've got to solidify our first party um,
Lineup.
yeah,
Yeah.
with cash. We need to secure everything so we don't go down the Ubisoft, railroad. Um,
Eventually, they will be sold. I mean, I don't disagree with you. I just see like the the majority of the complaints are like, what's Nintendo doing? What's their response? Nintendo was straight up like, we're fucking doing it anyway. Like, there's no like, and that's the one thing I constantly kept trying to press to people. It's like, it doesn't matter if you're on Reddit or social media. It doesn't matter how like you're saying like we should attack Nintendo with our wallets. It's like, guys, Nintendo's pricing has been the same. This is the same company when they would hold these massive like spring deals, summer deals, winter deals that would sell to you Mario Tennis at a 5% discount, and people would still buy the game. They were it was Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, a game that was on the Wii U, I believe, that they put on the Switch almost like 6 years later, and instead of just essentially putting it out there for like $40, $30, whatever, they put it for a straight 60. Made no real changes to the game outside of maybe like higher resolution. Right? I mean, that's the frustrating part. For me though, where I kind of like draw the line is the way they're going to price, and I don't know why I can say this, is the way they're going to price the upgrade packs. So Nintendo or Sony rather right now with their remasters on PS5 and PS5 Pro, it's $10 flat and you get like a remastered version. And I'm like, okay, that's fine, even though I do think that like if it's a more recent title, which all of them are because they're all PS4, that it should be a free upgrade. Okay. $10 is probably what people are going to tolerate. When it comes to the Switch, the upgrade pack for like Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild, I wonder if that's going to be both at the same time. And on top of that, what it's going to cost. My assumption, because I don't know if the pricing has been put out yet, is like $40. That sounds crazy, but the way Nintendo talked about it, they're like, look, you get higher resolutions, higher frame rate, and you get a GPS. And I'm like, what's the ad? What's the big ad there? Like, because you and I have talked about this. We said we believe that when Nintendo Switch games get played on the Switch 2, it should be direct emulation. Some type of backwards compatibility, higher resolutions, frame rates, right? Because we desperately want to play Xenoblade Chronicles 3 without it looking like shit. Right? We desperately don't want to see the screen tearing. But now that I've seen the upgrade packs, I am kind of concerned that to me is greedy. That if the cost of it is over $10, Brett, I think that's very greedy for just adding GPS. What are your thoughts on that?
yeah. So I don't know exactly. I
Because there are
I don't know what
Switch
go.
2 games,
Yeah.
there are Switch games that
Right.
aren't getting like a price increase.
Right.
So
So
what are we doing here? Like, can
so
you imagine
so
Fire Emblem with their houses? We get you another
so
screen. That's like
so
3DS.
so I will give you my input
Mm,
because I kind of swore off the Switch, right? I kind of the last 2 or 3 years, I'm like, all right, the Switch is dead to me now. I'm not investing in dead hardware.
right.
I think Triangle Strategy, I think was the last game that I bought on
About
the
2 years ago.
Switch.
Yeah, about 2 years ago.
Yeah. I was like, all right, there has to be something on the horizon, and I'm not going to invest. So a lot of the newest titles, I'll just have to buy the Switch 2 version, right? I don't have the upgrade pack to it. So if it's an extra $10, if it's 60 versus 70, you know, cool on me. That makes sense.
Mm.
Now, if you're charging someone more than the difference than the Switch and Switch 2 version, right? I'm assuming there are two different versions of the game, right? There's the Switch and the Switch 2
Are we
version.
doing with like the Wii U to the Switch? But it was the same cost though from the Wii U to the Switch for Breath of the Wild. It was $60.
Right.
So
Now,
are you
once
saying
it
like
once
are
it
you saying like 60 like because I think so Tears of the Kingdom was $70. And let's say
or sorry, 70, 80, not
right.
60, 70.
So we're talking like a $10 difference, essentially.
Right.
So my assumption is though is that what they're gonna do is like, yeah, that digital upgrade is gonna be $20 because it's between the $70 and the $90 physical price. Which I like to look at like your face. That would be devious, right?
Right.
That's greedy. Like if you're paying for an upgrade pack and it's more than just resolution, right? Like if it's more than just a remaster, you gotta give me more. You gotta give me something. Like I can defend you on like the price increases because I know as well as many others that game development is very costly. Right. And even though it's really hard to side with Nintendo on this because like I don't think they've had a bad first party selling game. I think all of them have sold over like 5 to 10 million, which means you've recouped all your costs, right? Even
Oh,
for like Luigi's Mansion 3.
I will say something. This is actually this might be divisive. I don't know if this is a good or a bad idea. I just thought of it, so I haven't really thought about it. If you own the Switch game and you have Switch Online or whatever it's going to be on the Switch 2, the
Right.
Switch Plus or whatever, those people get it for free. Like as long as you're subscribed, right? You just get the upgraded version as long as you're subscribed to whatever service that they
I would
have.
love that.
And obviously you lose it if you cancel the subscription, but you know, hey, you get all of these like because I think I pay for the cheaper one, the $3 one or $4 one, and then there's the like $15 one.
Yeah.
I don't get the Nintendo 64 games, but you know they're adding some like a few GameCube games. You know, once again, I still don't think that's really
how much
worth.
is that going to be? Is that going to make Nintendo Online $20?
That's what I'm saying. I don't know. They're they really haven't shown me the value of their subscription service.
It's a good point.
Xbox blew it out of the park. PlayStation finally caught up and starting to blow it out of the park.
Yep.
With their backwards catalog. You know, Switch is just like here's just some random games that you get to play eventually for a little bit, and then we release some more when we feel like it.
It is, yeah. I think that when I think you and I talked about this, like when we first saw the emulation services, we're like, oh shit, we're gonna get like a whole 20 to 30 games because I think like almost every month they were releasing 5 games, and then it just like slowed down to a crawl, and then it was like, yeah, so for the 64, it's gonna cost this much. I'm assuming, and we had waited for the GameCube on the Switch too. We had assumed that the GameCube would eventually show up, and that if we're being honest, the GameCube did not have a lot of bangers, right? That's fine, but if you're gonna add the GameCube, what are you charging now for Nintendo Online? And here's the other thing, for the Switch 2, what's Nintendo Online going to cost now? Because my assumption is, if we're getting this premium console, this handheld, there's going to be changes to the way they deliver their online program, because I think it's going to be, finally it's going to be into like, hopefully near like PlayStation, Xbox territory where like streaming is easy, multiplayer is going to be easy, because it looks like there's going to be like an emphasis on seamless co-op when it comes to Mario Kart World, because you are transitioning throughout that world with other players, right? So I assume that the online has to be consistent. So what is the new cost for Nintendo Switch Online 2? And if you're adding, like, here's the thing, if you say like $14.99, that $14.99 better include like Nintendo 64 emulation. If it doesn't, then I'm starting to question what Nintendo's doing, because then you're like, okay, so what is the GameCube part going to cost? Is it going to be $25 total a month? Because that ain't going to work in this economy, brother. Like people are going to be like, yo, chill. That's not going to happen. But I assume that their thought process says, well, I think we can rope in hardcore gamers. That's always been my thought about the emulation stuff with Nintendo. I mean, it's kind of hypocritical at the fact that like you guys believe in emulation because the Switch 2 will emulate Switch games. Just saying. But at the same time, you're now being charged an arm and a leg. And even though Sony does have like, it's, there are 3 tiers, I think the PlayStation Plus one, right? It's like basic PlayStation Plus, and it's like economy or whatever. but you're getting a lot of bang for your buck with PS Plus now. There's a lot of content. Same thing with Game Pass and its multiple tiers, right? You're getting like a lot of bang for your buck, and it feels like Nintendo is more so banking on like the experience of its first party titles and that consistency in terms of quality. And then they're like, okay, the online stuff is now secondary. But now on because like I think the first three Switch 2 titles that were announced were essentially two multiplayer titles because you got Mario Kart World and then you got Kirby's Air Ride, and then you're getting a Donkey Kong game. So the question is like, how much is this online portion going to cost us? And if it is going to cost us more, are you going to actually put more out there? Because that's what people want. People want to know if I'm dishing out $14 to $25. I'm just saying that's the high point. I don't know what that's going to be, but it could be. Like, how many GameCube games am I getting? Am I getting 5 only at the start? Because that's not enough. There's no and what was funny is that I don't know if you noticed this. Like Super Mario Sunshine wasn't on that list to start. I was like, there's no way. Absolutely not. That's a non-starter to me. There's a lot of questions Nintendo has to answer for because I see the upgrade packs. I understand them, right? I get it. But then there are also Switch games that are not getting upgrade packs, but you get them. You can just transition them to the Switch 2 for free, and you get upgraded resolutions, loading times, and all that stuff. So I'm like, what are we doing here? And how long is that emulation period going to take for other Switch 2? Because we assume that all Switch titles are going to go on the Switch 2, right? I mean, that's the guess.
Yeah, I would assume that there are onesie twosies that won't work properly, but I imagine 99% of them will.
Because Super Mario Odyssey is going to be on the Switch 2 for free. So I'm like, and I'm pretty sure that's sold as well to Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Like I really do assume that Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild is like the upgrade pack is like a dual upgrade pack. There's no way. I mean, I shouldn't say there's no way that you would see like them separately. That would be kind of an abhorrent cost by Nintendo. I'd be very shocked if they did that. But I'm looking at what Nintendo's doing and I'm saying like, all right, man, you're kind of, you've been pushing it. We've been waiting for the Switch 2. We're glad you gave everyone the specs, but also you're charging somebody for a tech demo. Can we talk about that for a second? I want to focus on that. When they showed the tech demo, I was actually kind of impressed by the way it looked. And I was like, "Oh, cool! So we're going to learn about the features of the new tech showing up in the Switch 2. We're going to see like the gyroscopic features, the speaker, all that stuff. Awesome. Paid? What do you mean paid? Now that could mean like $5, but it's a demo, right? We should be paying for demos. Does that establish some type of precedent for the future for Nintendo Switch 2 games where you're like, you pay $5 for a 2-hour trial?
Yeah. What was the PlayStation one that the PlayStation came with? The Playroom.
Yeah, Astro's Playroom.
That wasn't. Yeah, so that wasn't paid, was it?
Nope, that was free. That came with the system.
I thought so.
You got a 4-hour game for nothing.
Yeah. It was, and my wife loved that game.
It's a great 4-hour game.
He plays it occasionally. The Switch had that 1-2 play, which I know that's more. It was more of a full-fledged game, but it was a 60. I felt like it was a tech demo for $60.
I was shocked. When you told me that it was $60, I thought you were lying. I was like, oh no, it's gotta be like a $30 game.
And I'm pretty sure it's still $60. I don't think they've ever changed the price of that game.
That's
and
I'm
like, it is literally a tech demo for everything the Switch can do, right? With the gyroscopic and the rumble, like the 3D rumble, whatever. Like, once again, and Nintendo has the ability to do it. I don't know how. I don't know what kind of witchcraft they put in their secret sauce, but people are like, well, at least it's Nintendo. At least we're giving our money to a company that we feel like loves us back. I don't know.
And even though I really do think and I hear the argument that Nintendo is anti-consumer. I think all three of the major developers are anti-consumer. I think most gaming companies are anti-consumer, especially with the practices they engage in. I get it. But I think Nintendo is mostly for their consistency, right? When they commit to first party titles, dude, they are consistent in terms of quality and release. I can't complain about that because it's like, hey, look, here's Metroid Prime 4. We're like, when's it coming out? They're like, chill, it's going to be soon. And then they dedicate 3 months for that game, and then they showcase what happens on release. And, you and I watched the Treehouse for Mario Kart World, and we're like, That's good. Yeah, that's, there's no complaints on it. There's going to be enough content there. The pricing stuff, though, I think like everybody has a leg to stand on if you want to argue against Nintendo's pricing methods. 100%, I believe in that. I do think, though, that more than likely Nintendo's analysts are probably sitting there, and like you said, we want to future proof and at least provide. Maybe the thought process should be, look, we're charging you this much, but we're also turning that into another game, right? We're charging you $80, and whatever we get into that, we're going to charge you for another game. My thing is, I can accept that as long as the upgrade packs that you have, like upgrading existing Switch games, like aren't just being upgraded with like higher frame rates and resolution, and you're charging us an arm and a leg. Because like with Mario Party, the newest one, like what's cool about that is that you actually are getting added content that is Switch 2 exclusive. You are. Right. That's great, right? Now, do I think that you should charge people for your voice chat stuff? No.
That's the weirdest add-on.
Quite possibly. No, you're right. Not just the weirdest. That might be the worst thing that they announced, was that you have to be charged to use a button. That comes with the Switch 2. Can you imagine? Imagine if Sony had said on the PS5 that you would get charged for the share button.
I mean, I never pressed that button anyways, right. but yeah.
You would get charged for screenshots. That type
Honestly,
of stuff.
Just the camera. The camera looks really weird to me. I don't know. It just doesn't.
I feel like
it gives me very PlayStation 2.
Nintendo is watching us when we. It's like, hello, Brad. I saw that you weren't playing your Switch 2 recently. Can I ask as to why?
I will say the Piranha Plant edition one. You can get the camera that looks like, it looks cool, but it's like, once again, it's just. So my Xbox One, I did have the camera, but I never plugged it in because there was just no reason for me to. But once again, I feel like that's a gimmicky thing that was 15 years ago. The PlayStation 2 had the eye.
Oh no!
Right? And I had one of those.
The Kinect, was it the iConnect? What was the? It was just the Kinect, right? The Xbox Kinect when it first came out. We're like, oh, awesome! Now you can do motion tracking. I feel like all the AR stuff just has not worked out. I think it's really cool that they try to implement that into the space. It's just been so clunky, It's just like everyone tries it so hard to be like, this is amazing, next level.
It's not needed when you have buttons in your hands physically.
Exactly. So yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so I'm looking at the compatibility page for the Switch 2. I'm actually upset because the one thing that it says games that cannot be played on the Switch 2 is the Labo VR kit. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, that's the one thing that should work on this.
Not gonna pre-order that bad boy. I don't give a shit anymore.
But it under it, it's like games that have issues with Switch 2, but it's like a list of games. And it looks like you can use the original Joy-Cons for games that don't require the additional features. You can wirelessly connect, just to have controllers.
So Nintendo believes in emulation, but they're trying to sue people. I don't understand. What's going on here, Nintendo? It's our own product. Yeah, I looked at the whole package and I said, look, I mean, honestly, I think that the only sour part to this was the announcement of the price. But I was like, what did you guys expect? The Switch, to a lot of people, was like, it's 8 years old. Okay? Everyone has been clamoring for like real tangible upgrades to the Switch 2. A lot of speculation videos, a lot of spec videos. People are like, what's it going to be like? How's it going to work? And now that we're getting it, did you guys expect to pay the same amount? That's an odd thing to expect, considering that they're giving you everything that people have asked for. And I think, it looks like it's legitimately running like on PS4 Pro hardware. We made that assumption too. We're like, yeah, it looks like PS4 Pro games. Seriously. I mean, like, if you can play Metroid Prime 4 at 120 frames per second on the Switch 2, that's price of admission, man. We got console games right now. They're still running at 30 frames per second. I mean? Like, and they're like, here's a handheld, dude. Here, run your shit at 120. And you might get higher resolutions at 60 frames. I mean, I think that all of that is fine. But if you want to fight them on the price point, I don't think either of us complain. Either of us will complain. But we've said this before in previous podcast episodes. You can find our Nintendo stuff. We have said straight up, Nintendo's going to do what it wants, and I don't think anyone's going to stop them.
Yeah, I mean, so I will pay full price for the games that I really want to play.
Exactly.
Right, the Zeldas, some of the Mario's, some of them I can give or take on.
Do you think that Nintendo is going to introduce a Game Pass type system to the Switch 2 eventually?
They've had so Xbox. I feel like Xbox is the least likely entity to do that, right? To just collectively just gather hundreds and hundreds of games that said here $15,
Yeah, I'm on there.
let's play. Because like 10 years ago they're like, no, you have to be on the internet to turn on your console, right? It's like I don't think and the console or the developer, I think that it's most likely to have well, for one, that owns the catalog to where they can just give you access without having to pay 400,000 other people, for their games to be on the pet. Like Nintendo has a ginormous first party catalog to pull from.
Yeah, massive.
And why they're not doing it, like why they're throwing crumbs at us for $10, I'll pay $20 a month if you give me the full catalog.
100%.
I mean,
if you don't, Nick, like
it's wild.
I think you and I've talked about this. Like these like Game Pass services, these Netflix type, business models. I think we're cool with it because as long as you give us the games, I still think Xbox Game Pass is the best value because you are getting brand new games for $14.99 a month, right? And even Sony stuff, like they're starting to kind of slap in like PlayStation Plus titles, like that are coming out relatively next day or within like the month, and you're like, just play the waiting game, dude. Like I don't have to pay $60. Now, I do think like my argument against it would be like Nintendo probably sees the fact that they're selling at such high quantities every game. I just want to look up a game that they've done first party where it was like a complete flop. And I'm talking like below 1 million units sold. I just can't see it. Like there has to be something out there where it talks about, hey, a game just like flopped. Like Animal Crossing sold like 23 million copies. I think Tears of the Kingdom sold over 20. Moved 10 million in its first like 3 days or something like that. I'm looking for that game that completely flopped. Like, I mean, I think ARMS sold over 1 million copies in Splatoon. Like, Nintendo just makes games and just runs with them as hard as humanly possible. It's just one of those things where I think like people are eventually going to have to accept that Nintendo does what it wants, and it is unfortunate. But like the thing is, you can kind of just pick and choose your games with them. Like you don't have to like buy everything. But I do think that the upgrade stuff is kind of like my only main gripe about it. Like you and I, like I swear, dude, I swear to God, I will buy this. If they do, hey, Xenoblade Chronicles 1 through 3, like out on, I'm like, okay, you got me, Nintendo. I'm gonna pay for it. Like, but like I
give me the gold edition of that, please.
Yeah. You and I have complained though when we were like, hey man, like you can't just put remasters out for $60. That's not fair. Like of a Wii U title? Like, I mean, come on now. Like that's not cool, dude. Like, but I will absolutely dig into my wallet for like a Xenoblade Chronicle. I want it to run better than 20 frames per second, dude, and not look like it's struggling. 100%.
Once again, I was just like, I'm not playing it. I like even Xenoblade Chronicles 2 had moments where it was just like, well, one, it just looked gross in general. Like trying to play it on like a 70-inch 4K TV, you're just like, this is not it. This is not it, bro.
The stretched out colors, the massive
even
pop
so
in.
freaking the Octopath Traveler, right? Fantastic. I loved the first one. I loved the second one too. It's actually it's even better.
Tremendous
but
game.
the first when I played the first one, I refused to play it on my TV because I'm like, it just looks awful. It looks so bad. And then the second one came out on the PS5, and I'm like, all right, let's go.
So here's the question before we close up, because I didn't want to make this too long of an episode. So there's a lot of announcements for like third-party games, and we talked about this too. I think I said it to Jack. I said I was curious to see if the Switch 2 would be able to play major third-party titles. And now we're getting Elden Ring, Cyberpunk 2077, I think a handful of others. Are you kind of shocked? So like, what does that mean for Nintendo moving forward? Does that mean like, I mean, because here's the, let's kind of put a little step on this, or let's stop this for a second, because like now these are games that are like 2 to 3 years old and were created to be played on older consoles. Like, is that what we're going to see with some third party titles, where eventually they get reformatted and then put out on the Switch 2? Like, will we ever see Kingdom Come 2 on the Switch 2? You know what I mean? Like, what does this mean for Nintendo moving forward? Because now they're not only bringing like first party, they're bringing third party titles as well. Like, what are we gonna see? Like, how? Like,
Well, I still think they have the Switch conundrum, right? Where it's
mhm.
they're trying to put these, they're trying to put Cyberpunk on Switch 2 hardware, which did not run,
Cyberpunk mobile version.
which absolutely failed on PS4
Four.
Pro
Yeah,
hardware.
that's
Like
true. But
it did not
it's been
work.
4 years, right? I think
I
so.
mean, it's been optimized, sure. Okay, yeah,
Right.
I'm sure they've figured out a way to make it run better.
Listen,
But once
they
again,
brought Doom to the Switch. Okay, you had to stream it.
right. So, I mean, once again, I'm pretty sure even if they remaster freaking The Witcher 3, which I think was a streaming title on the place on the Switch, I don't
Rough.
think it'll run well.
I mean, that's a
I
good
don't
point.
think it'll run well on the
I
Switch
do
too.
think though there it's like, I think the obvious support for the Switch 2 from third parties is actually going to be big for them in the future. But I do also think, and let me know like what you think about this, is that just like the Series S, it could hold back the next generation. Right? Because if you want to maximize your profit, and let's be real about it, you want your game to be put out on every single platform if you want to maximize profit. And there is no like, obviously, I think that they projected the Switch 2, even if it sold at $600, to go and literally sell 15 million in that launch window, which is like 3 months, or that 90-day period.
Yeah.
My question is, with the Switch 2 being just, let's say PS4 Pro handheld, which is still really good, by the way, it's a really good thing. Is that going to hold back this current generation? Because you and I have talked about this too. We've been kind of waiting for that big next gen game, and we're finally starting to get games that are strictly for like the PS5 and Xbox Series X. But we've seen games come out on the Xbox Series S, and we're like, what is the point of having this console, knowing that it is significantly weaker, knowing that you're only getting 30 frames per second, maybe? Like, does this, because the Switch 2 will be around, we assume an 8-year life cycle. Let's just be honest. If they ran with the Switch for 8 years, you guys are gonna be really pissed off that the Switch 2 is here for another 8. Is this gonna hold back the next generation?
Uh,
Because you can technically put third party, probably low quality third party titles,
yeah. I
right?
I'm actually curious if Nintendo will allow that. Right. I get that
Mhm.
they would obviously, especially during the beginning, right?
Right.
More people are going to have the original Switch than the Switch 2 until the supply meets demand, you know. Um, but will Switch go like I'm sure they'll allow it for smaller titles, but if they think it's going to have an impact on the actual demand of the hardware,
Mhm.
right? It's like, hey, this is an exclusive title to the Switch. It's like, do you even want it on the original Switch, or do you want it exclusively on the Switch too?
Right.
Um,
But with the Switch 2, is that gonna hold back like this generation?
oh, okay,
Because
okay,
it,
I see
I
what
mean,
you're saying.
you're actually right about that as well.
I
Because
thought you're saying
no,
with the Switch, hold the
no,
Switch
you're,
two back.
I mean, you got the answer right. You just were not paying attention to the question.
My bad. My bad.
Yeah,
I was holding back the wrong thing. My
hold
bad.
back the. I mean, your answer was correct, but like, do you think that for the Switch 2 stuff, like, is this because you could now bring these massive third party titles and potentially, let's say, Call of Duty Black Ops 6 makes its way to the Switch 2? Like, are we like,
No,
no, you don't think it's
I
gonna
don't.
hold?
I don't think it will. I
Oh,
don't. I think things like especially things like Call of Duty, right? I think the the discrepancy of users on Nintendo
mhm.
versus Xbox and PlayStation,
Okay.
like which what does it weigh? I'm sure there are some titles that might come into consideration, but
Mm.
I'm almost guaranteed that there will be Switch editions of games or
Oh
Switch 2 editions of games.
man, you know what?
Which Mortal Kombat, prime example.
The MK1. I gotta find the screenshot and insert that of like just
Oh,
the
dude, that was
lack of detail on their face. Like, that was just like disrespectful. Like, why would you do that?
yeah.
I
I highly doubt any respecting, developers are going to say, "Oh, we're going to release the exact same game, on every platform." When
I've seen some previews for Cyberpunk, and I think it's just really like if you played it on low end or on like
right,
the PS4. I'm like, if you can get I mean, by now I'd be kind of confused outside of like people who just want to own the game on all platforms.
well,
Why you would buy Cyberpunk 2077 on what is potentially the weakest console next to the Series S?
right.
You know what I mean? Be kind of
I
weird.
mean, with AI and DLSS stuff, I
Mhm.
mean, I'm sure they can achieve it playability. I'm sure they can
Right.
figure out the playability of it, but it's like
If you get that bad boy running at 120 frames per second, that would be an achievement
I
because
highly doubt.
I
I'm
get that. I'm just saying, like, could you imagine? I'm
You
getting
probably
like,
can't even run that at 720, 120 frames. That's just probably not going to happen.
damn, that would be interesting. I am very curious to see like how certain third party titles run. I do because they showed a bunch and I was like, really? Like I didn't think the Switch 2 was going to have that. I mean, they are getting a From Software title, which is essentially what I found out was a PvP PvE game in Dustblood, which I was like, okay, whatever. Do people want that? No idea, but it's From Software, so people are going to play it. But I do think it is curious that we are going to see really big, titles like Elden Ring and Cyberpunk on the Switch too. Now the question is like how degraded is the quality? But I don't think people will care much if like what you're saying, it's in a playable state and like let's say it runs at 60 frames per second on 1080p and it's still decent. I think people wouldn't care. Right? I
I
think
I I I think solely off of the portability of that, right?
yeah.
I don't think the console, the the living room console concept is going to be the selling point for those types of games. I think it's the fact
That's
that you'll just have it in the palm of your hand anywhere.
that is an excellent point, right? GTA 6 on the Switch too. You've heard it here first. You've heard it here first. You can cause mayhem and chaos. I do want to bring this last point up. Um I think the genuine concern now, especially with the price point being at $80 to $90 for physical, that is now going to open the door for Xbox and Sony to do the same, but also certain um, big AAA titles that are en route. Now, I'm going to say this. I think developers need to be very careful because their gamers' tolerance is going to really vary. And you might see games completely like just nosedive in terms of sales if you kind of push the button too much. But I will say this, though, might be controversial. The only game right now that's upcoming that is more than likely worth $80 to $100 is GTA 6. That's it. There's nothing else coming out, and I hate to be that guy because I expect if it does release this year, and more than likely developers are looking at the release time of GTA 6 to move back every game in that stratosphere. If that game does come out this year, if it releases for $100, don't be shocked. Don't be shocked because now Rockstar literally can look at Nintendo and say, "Well, you guys set the price point 80 to 100 or 80 to 90.
Right.
I feel like what we have here, which is potentially like a $500 million development game or $1 billion development game depending on whatever the cost may be, that we can get away with $100." And I do think that it would sell like crazy. People are going to have to like go into a firm and put like a
Right.
finance thing out. Get that 20% APR. $20 a month.
You download the demo to the GTA 6 game is
It's
is you
60
creating
bucks.
your character
Yeah.
is creating your character and going to a bank in the game to finance with Rockstar your purchase of the actual game.
You got to get like the Rockstar shark cards or whatever. You got to pay for the card to pay for the game. Holy shit, that'd be brutal. Oh,
Yeah, no, I honestly my I kind of think Nintendo wants it to be digital, right? I really feel like they're now. I don't know. Well, I don't know if they're doing it intentionally. They might be, but I really think physical copies of games are just going to be a
Ooh.
collector's edition type thing. I
You
feel
might you
I
might
f-
have upset like an entire group of people with that take. Holy
I mean,
shit.
I don't want it to be true. I do like the physical copies of some games.
We're already at the
I
point where there's a question of like you get like a physical copy of a game and it's like it's just not the same experience as it was when you opened
well,
up like a PlayStation or
yeah.
you
Well,
know NES
now
cartridge.
now physical games are just keys to start the game anyways. I mean, you still
By
have to
and
download.
by the way, that's a thing that like they've stated too is that if you buy like a
Mhm.
physical copy, it's literally just a key.
Right.
So I
So
mean,
it
you know,
and once again, I feel like they're just gonna be like, "We really want you to just buy it on digital, so we're gonna make it even more
you
gross to buy the
imagine
physical
is like,
copy."
hey, we gave you the option, right? The cheaper option is digital. We've expanded the space. The memory is 256 gigs. He's like, why would you want to continuously have physical copies? I'm not arguing against that. They're giving you the options. It's not like the PS5 where the PS5 Pro requires you to have like the actual disc drive to pay for it. You have to pay like $50 for it, right? I mean, that's kind of messed up, but I get what you're saying. I think that's a good thing too, because you know they're like, hey, look, now digital games can be $80. I do think this is going to be a stress test for gamers moving
And we
forward.
and Nintendo doesn't have to worry about the extra
Yep, packaging and stuff
supply
like that. Yep.
chain of the like they
And you also
employees, factories,
you know what
etcetera,
also
etcetera.
is that Ubisoft is probably upset that they didn't do it first. They're like, dude, we could have been charging you guys for For Honor like
Like,
$80. Like, what
dang, our quadruple A title, we should have charged more money for it.
the we you know what we gave you a deal on Skull and Bones. That should have been $120. That was quad
That's
A.
why
Like
it failed.
that's
We didn't make it lucrative enough.
it did not because it took 10 years with 50 different developers, but because we did make it lucrative enough. Holy shit. Alrighty, well, that's gonna do it for this video. Brad, thanks for coming in, chat. And obviously, Jack didn't want to be here because Jack, you know, what does he know about gaming? TV, same thing. They're not gonna watch this far. But let us let us know what you think about the Switch 2's pricing. Like, are you excited? Are you still gonna pre-order it, depending on what the price point is? Let us know what you think about the price point of the games and whether or not this is gonna set a trend in the industry. I am Ken. That is Brad from Pixelated Thoughts, and we'll talk to you next time.